Allen Ginsberg was one of the founding writers of the Beat Generation, a counterculture movement of writers disillusioned with the militarism, economic materialism, and social conservatism that appeared following World War II. Ginsberg's free verse style of writing emphasizes his philosophical mindset on life that values free will, and his controversial opinions struck the world with his frank claims. Born in Newark, New Jersey, Ginsberg was born into a Jewish family of a Russian immigrant and English teacher. His experiences with writing began with his political letters to the New York Times as a teenager. It was at this age that Ginsberg was exposed to Walt Whitman's writings, which would powerfully influence Ginsberg's style. Ginsberg's mother was also a significant influence in his writings. Naomi Livergant Ginsberg suffered from an undiagnosed psychological illness and was plagued with paranoid delusions. Ginsberg's constant exposure to his mother's mental suffering developed within him a great tolerance, sympathy, and understanding of mental illness and its sufferers. He himself would find himself briefly institutionalized in the future. Ginsberg attended Columbia University on a scholarship, where he met many of the writers who would comprise the Beats generation. This group of post-war writers rejected notions of conformity and capitalism, and included Jack Kerouac, author of On the Road, and William S. Burroughs, who wrote Naked Lunch. Beat refers to the exhaustion and exasperation the writers felt with the current generation and its ideals. After graduating from Columbia, Ginsberg was arrested for accessory to robbery. To escape a jail sentence, he pled insanity and was admitted to the Columbia Presbyterian Psychiatric Institute for 8 months. There, he met and befriended Carl Solomon, the writer to whom he dedicates his renowned epic, Howl. He draws upon his experiences while institutionalized in several of his writings, including Howl and Kaddish. In 1948, Ginsberg experienced an auditory hallucination in the form of a voice reading the works of William Blake. He later described it as, "The peculiar quality of the voice was something unforgettable because it was like God had a human voice, with all the infinite tenderness and anciency and moral gravity of a living creator speaking to his son." This was a segue into his fascination and exploration with drugs. Upon the recommendation of his mentor William Carlos Williams, Ginsberg moved to San Francisco, where he met his lifelong partner Peter Orlonsky. Ginsberg was openly gay by this point and references his sexuality in his works frequently. At the time, homosexuality was legal, and his depictions of such acts drew great controversy. In fact, after its first reading, Howl was put under an obscenity trial. Despite Ginsberg's victory, the trial sparked great lashback. Ginsberg was also a part of a large poetic movement known as the San Francisco Renaissance, a great revival of literature distinct from the zeitgeist of pre-war works. The group that would be known as the Beat Generation truly came together here. The legacy of the Beat Generation would pervade, and planting the seeds for other counterculture movements, such as the hippie movement and anti-war protests. Much of Ginsberg's works had political undertones. However, in Howl, they are not as evident, but in works such as Wichita Vortex Sutra and Plutonian Ode, Ginsberg declares his views on ending the Vietnam War and nuclear energy. Ginsberg's writings about homosexuality and drug experimentation helped to shed light on such subjects that were greatly controversial at the time. In addition to the medium of writing, Ginsberg often was an active participant. Ginsberg's style utilizes spontaneous prose, a term coined by his friend Jack Kerouac. The stylistic choice is also derived from the works of Whitman, which can be observed prominently in his collection of poems, The Leaves of Grass. The following poem, Howl, is a poem written in spontaneous prose. It is an energetic display of dismay towards the toxic effect of capitalism, conformity, and social conservatism. With dreams, with drugs, with waking nightmares, alcohol and cock and endless balls, incomparable blind, streets of shuddering cloud and lightning in the mind, leaping towards poles of Canada and Patterson, illuminating all the motionless world of time between. Peyote solidities of halls, backyard green tree cemetery dawns, wine drunkenness over the rooftops, storefront burrows of T-head, joyride neon blinking traffic lights, sun and moon and tree, vibrations in the roaring winter dusts of Brooklyn, ashcan rantings and kind king light of mine, who chain themselves to subways for the endless ride from Battery to Holy Bronx on Benzedrin until the noise of wheels and children brought them down shuddering, mouth racked and battered bleak of brain, all drained of brilliance in the drear light of zoo. So, the inclusion of the word dreams in this line demonstrates the utter despair Ginsberg feels given this desolation of these bright minds. These are the items with which the bright minds have taken into their bodies with ill effect, which implies that having dreams could give them a false sense of hope. The names of cities and locations are also present in many of the lines. By mentioning a great diversity of locations, Ginsberg could be expressing his dismay towards it with the ubiquitous destruction of said brilliant minds. This could also provide some insight onto what exactly is causing the destruction. Perhaps it is something pervasive and ingrained. These victims of conformity and capitalism are often drug users, as portrayed in this poem. This reinforces Ginsberg's stance on drugs and their importance, that they are one of the defining characteristics of a great mind of the generation, unafraid to explore the depths of their mind. The imagery that is presented by this passage can also be violent and jarring. a vision of a thundercloud within the mind shooting thunder into opposite directions. However, this transitions into a much calmer image, illuminating a motionless world. This vision could be a prediction of the course of a revival in the brilliant minds that had been so tarnished, a great struggle leading to a serene calmness. Howl is also biographical to an extent, and Ginsberg draws from personal experience to help illustrate the types of individuals who are being oppressed. Ginsberg himself had a period of time when he experimented with peyote in Mexico. He is not condemning people for taking drugs, but rather is criticizing the nature in which drug users are oppressed. Ginsberg utilizes anaphora by repeating with the phrase "who" in describing the types of brilliant minds that have been ruined throughout the poem. The repetition of format and sheer number of descriptions insinuates an enormous quantity of these ruined minds and some fundamental similarity upon which they can take solidarity. The usage of alliteration on top of the already long and convoluted lines enhances the effect of exhaustion and exasperation that these angel-headed hipsters are experiencing. The reader, him or herself, can experience this draining effect when reading the poem out loud. Howl, as implied in the title, is a visceral cry of disgust at the current oppression of the free-willed, whether this will manifest itself in their sexuality, drug usage, psychological state, or political views. The rambling lines can create an image of a relentless rant, naming grievance after grievance. The nature of these grievances is further elucidated in the latter portion of this poem.